virtually so you can enjoy from the comfort of your home. It's brought to you by Green Fair Organic Cafe and Mike Young's plantbaseddiet.org, as well as our great sponsors from Mom's Organic Market and the Evolution Vegan Academy. I'm thrilled to be back with Courtland Milloy from the Washington Post, a longtime advocate and supporter of our other guest, Lisa LaFontaine from the Washington Humane, the Washington Rescue Alliance, who's been a great friend for almost a decade now. She's doing fantastic things with the Washington environment. And so I'm going to sign off and let Courtland and Lisa have a fun discussion. Courtland, you're good.
I'm here. I'm waiting on Lisa to come up.
Hi there, Courtland. How are you? I'm here.
Hi, Lisa.
Hi.
How are you doing?
I'm doing great, although it's hard to know how to answer that question right now, but I think I'm doing pretty well, at least this hour.
Well, you have a nice home.
Thank you. I'm surrounded by books. That's good. And animals, as you can imagine.
Well, where's your dog?
I thought she might join with us in conversation, so I just had her go down and sleep on the couch for the next 45 minutes.
Mm-hmm. Well, I brought a picture of my cat that I got from the Rescue Alliance. So tell me, how have things been going since this virus thing happened?
Yeah, so at the Humane Rescue Alliance, we actually have shelters and programs in Washington, D.C. and the greater metro area, as well as in northern New Jersey through our St. Hubert's campus. And so altogether, we have 6 different facilities. And when all of this started, the first thing that we thought we should do is get all of the animals out of the shelters, because one of the big unknowns was, as people began to get sick and if they were hospitalized, would they need to temporarily or permanently give up their pets? So we wanted to have room in our shelters in case that happened. And I'll tell you that I knew that something different was happening, that this was maybe an inflection point in society when we put the call out and our phones started ringing off the hook and our facilities were crowded because people came in to adopt. But even more than that, they signed up to foster animals. And I guess it makes sense when you think about it, because people are in their homes. It's an uncertain time. People are scared and nervous, and everything we know has been upended. And animals give us something to focus on, something to touch and to cuddle and to talk to, and also a routine. And I think that's been really important, is that as people have taken our shelter animals into their home, they're out walking them and they're playing ball in the backyard, or they're playing laser tag with their cat. And so we actually have over 500 foster homes waiting for an animal right now. So it's just blown us away.
That is amazing. You mean, when I came to get my cat, I picked the cutest little kitty in the place. And I was told that, there was, that's what people do. They come get the cute ones, but you have sometimes difficulty moving the older ones, the older cats, the older dogs. You mean people got those too?
It wasn't an issue. It was, at one point, all of our animals were in foster care. And we run, we have a complex program both in Washington, D.C. and throughout New Jersey. We do animal control for over 15 cities and municipalities. So that means animals get lost and we pick them up and we bring them to our shelters. And if their owner doesn't come, then we put them into our adoption programs. And so they're coming in and going into foster care as fast as you can imagine. And our team has been amazing. They set up a complete virtual adoption process because a week or so after all these animals went into foster care, all the social distancing went in place. And so we closed our shelters to adoptions. So now if you wanted to adopt an animal, you would meet them virtually in their foster home, just like you and I are talking right now.
Wow. Was there ever any concern about the pets being carriers of the disease? You know, there was some talk, don't pet your, pet. We don't know how it's going. How did that turn out?
Well, there were 2 dogs that tested positive early on. One was in Hong Kong and one was in Europe.
Mhm.
And what they found was that that was contact from the owner. So the owner who had COVID probably sneezed right on the
Mhm.
dogs, and actually deposited the virus on their fur. Um, Now with cats, there have been some cats who have actually caught a feline version of coronavirus. They cannot pass it on to people, so
Mhm.
people are safe.
Mhm.
But what we're telling people is just use common sense, just as you wouldn't cough on your child or your partner,
Mhm.
don't
Mhm.
cough on your pet.
Yeah.
And so that having that knowledge early on was really helpful. So that didn't become yet another
Mhm.
um, fear in the midst of a
Yeah.
lot of fears.
Yes. Yes. What do you account? You mentioned something about people wanting the companionship, but you had pit bulls at the alliance that I didn't think anybody would want. What do you think changed really about people? Have we started seeing living things differently, each other even?
Oh, absolutely. And we have dogs of all shapes and sizes. Full disclosure, my dog's a pit bull,
Mhm.
and she's beautiful. And um, I think what people do is they meet the animal and they see that they're loving and they're full of hope and they're playful, and it doesn't really matter what they look like or um, uh, what size they are or how old they are. I also think an important thing is that people feel helpless right now. They're unable to do anything. They're staying home to stay safe. And so this lets people feel like they're giving back to society, which they are. They're giving back to us in a huge way.
Mhm.
And I think that it's a really nice thing for people to feel useful and productive and that they're doing something for society as a whole. And I think it's been an absolute lifesaver for people who live alone. I mean, think of how isolated people are who live alone, and you can talk to your animals, you can sleep with them, you can play with them, you can get them out for walks. And so there's just something about the exchange of love and normalcy that
Mhm.
has been powerful.
Do you think when I got my cat, I had to kind of sign some papers and kind of prove myself to be worthy of of this cat. And you get a pet, and it's like a child.
Mhm.
You have to kind of take care of it. Do you think people are really naturally able to just jump in and do that? Do you worry about any of the animals?
Well, I don't worry about it because I don't think they would come to us, and we have conversations with people about fostering much like we had with you when you adopted your cat. So the same process is in place, the same conversations are happening. It's just a little bit different arrangement because it's temporary care instead of a permanent adoption. But the majority of these animals are not staying in the foster homes; they are getting adopted from them. So it is really just a temporary shelter. It's just a home instead of an institutional setting. And I
Mhm.
think the really exciting thing about um, there are a couple of things that really strike me about this. And I mentioned earlier, I think it's a societal turning point. We still don't know if in certain communities, animals will start coming into shelters because their owners get sick. But I can tell you that I'm on the phone every day with leaders of organizations across the country because I want to understand what are the trends in communities that may be further ahead than
Mhm.
us,
Mhm.
but that have similar demographics. And
Mhm.
I think the thing that struck me early on is that New York City, which by all accounts is ground zero for this pandemic,
Mhm.
um, has a sister organization, the New York Animal Care and Control Facility. In the entire time of all of this, with the hundreds of thousands of New Yorkers who've gotten ill and some unfortunately have died, only 10 animals have come into the sheltering system. And
Mhm.
think about that, 10 animals. And what that says to me is that people who are sick are finding a way to still care for their animal when they're sick because they don't want to be alone and they want that companionship. Or if they get so sick they have to go to the hospital, they've made an arrangement for a family member or friend to take the animal. And I think that's an inflection point in society where animals truly have become deeply important to people so that they're doing this type of planning. And in our Washington and New Jersey shelters, we care for 20,000 animals a year directly. And we've only seen 2 who have come in because of the COVID virus. And one has already returned to her owner. So, that's really different than what we would have seen 10 years ago. So something's happening in society. I think our messages as a collective movement have gotten out so that people are really considering their pets when they consider a family emergency.
What would you have seen 10 years ago? What might have stood out?
I think we would have seen people giving up their pets and coming into the shelter systems.
Just giving them up.
Just giving them up.
Yeah.
Or not having a plan in place so that the animals have to come to us. And then there's always the difficulty in reuniting with them. So I think it's been really striking. And it's
no, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say it's causing me to rethink how we're going to do our work for the next 20 years.
And when you say rethink, how are you going to do it? What kind of thoughts are popping into your head?
Well, one is that adoption used to always take place in a hub and spoke model where people would have to come to our facilities to adopt an animal. But what's happening right now, and has been happening for the last 3 weeks, where people meet animals virtually, has been working beautifully. And so I think we will use more foster homes, which are like a virtual shelter, right? It's moving the shelter into the community. It's a more network model than a hub and spoke model. And it allows the members of our communities to participate in sheltering and rehoming animals. And I think it's bringing them closer to us and more supportive of us, because philanthropy has gone up as well. And I think there's a direct connection between us opening the floodgates a little and welcoming people into our organization and them supporting it financially. But, it's better for animals to be sitting on a couch than sitting in a institutional shelter. And I have the most amazing team of colleagues that I work with. They give so much. You've seen them in action. They give so much love to the animals, but it's not the same as being in a home.
What about, well, there are a lot of programs that you have, but one that stands out to me is that enforcement of looking at animals that just didn't get the right home.
Right.
Did you have to scale that back? The looking, what are you finding in terms of the abuse, neglect, of animals?
So the end of February, when we could see this coming to our communities, we sat down and we did a really rigorous, what are our essential programs and what are our nice to haves? And we suspended our nice to haves because we wanted to focus on the essential. We know very well, we have 300 employees throughout all of our facilities. We wanted to keep them as safe as possible. We wanted to have backup teams. So we actually broke our 300 employees into teams so that if one team got sick, another could come in behind them to do the work. And we knew we had to scale things down if that was the case. Now, the unfortunate thing is all the programs that we scale down are the ones that bring revenue in. But you know what? That didn't really matter for us because we have this essential work that we have to do. And that is the work of sheltering, of lost and found, and of the officers who are in the field. And altogether, we have over 30 officers who they work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, all through the year, investigating reports of cruelty, rescuing animals who have gotten into bad situations. And that work is essential. And the mayor of DC and the governor of Virginia both included those activities as essential services when they shut their communities down and the state down. And so everything we deemed essential was then deemed essential by elected officials. And so they're just doing what they do all the time. And we've had last week or week before last, we had a little poodle who fell into a storm drain in Northeast DC, and we had to get on the phone with DC Water to come remove the cap, and the officers went into the sewer system to rescue the dog. We've had 8 or 9 arrests. We seized 4 dogs from a house in New Jersey on Wednesday. So all of that work continues. I would say that the only thing that I'm concerned about is that cruelty to animals requires someone to see something that intuitively seems wrong and call us. And with society as shut down as it is, I do worry that people aren't seeing some of the cruelty that they may see when everybody's out and about a little bit more. But the other thing we're seeing is wild animals coming out. So we serve all animals. We serve dogs and cats and all companion animals, wildlife, farm animals, and the wildlife are just out in beautiful ways right now. But it also means they're getting into trouble, and we need to support them and help them and rescue them.
What kind of wild animals? Not birds, not foxes.
Sure.
Not,
birds, foxes. I don't think you could name an animal that we haven't cared for. I really don't. I mean, we've had abandoned emus and monkeys, and we have pigs a lot of the time. We have goats and sheep, and we have roosters right now, and chickens, and we rescued a bear from Northwest DC, and relocated him to Maryland. So there really isn't an animal that we don't consider it part of our mission to serve.
Mm-hmm. Well, no tigers from the Netflix series, right? No king tiger.
No tigers. We have helped the National Zoo capture a couple of animals that have escaped in the past year.
Mm-hmm. Now that the court system is all, they're even letting people out of jails for nonviolent crimes and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You have any concerns about that?
Well, I think that the people that are letting out of jail are people that are letting out for nonviolent crimes. My concern is around violence, because people who are violent to people are usually violent to animals, and vice versa. And that's a mental illness. It is regardless of demographic or cultural background or education or anything. So I don't have concerns about that. We will likely see some of our court cases in limbo for a long time. But the animals are safe with us now, so that's okay.
Yes. Tell me about the funding part. I mean, that's always a struggle, but why would people decide to, be more generous now, you think?
Well, we've been very honest with people about the impact on us. I mean, we've been, I also sat down the same time we were looking at essential services and thought, what could this mean for us if every single program we have that brings in revenue is shut down for the entirety of our budget year? What does it look like if philanthropy goes down 6 or 8%? And we identified what the funding gap would be for us. And then we, sharpened our pencils and sat down and said, what can we cut? How can we have a really bare bones budget? We put a hiring freeze in place. We cut many of our costs. And we were able to save well over a third of the gap by doing that. And then we reached out to our board of directors, who came together unanimously and put a challenge grant together. And they are challenging the community to meet their generous contributions, doubling their gifts. And so that's helping a lot. And I think it's important to be honest and transparent with people and just say, this is what the need is. One of the next waves that I worry about is a significant portion of our services help people in the communities who are economically distressed. And so we give out tons, literally tons, not an exaggeration, of pet food to people who have fallen on hard times. We offer safety net medical services, wellness clinics, veterinary care, vaccines to people who can't afford to go to the veterinarian. And I expect those numbers are going to go up as the unemployment rate skyrockets and people lose their jobs or are furloughed. And so we're actually preparing for that by getting lots of donations of pet food and pet supplies to give out. And we're looking at telemedicine and other ways to expand our veterinary services because we've learned that people's pets are important to them. And so we want them to keep those family members
Mhm.
and not have to give them up.
Yes. Give me a little overview of the scope of what you do. I mean, the animals get spaded and neutered, all those kind of things. Their educational components,
Mhm.
just lots of stuff. Tell
Sure.
people think we're talking about a dog pound. This is not a dog pound.
No, I always say we are not your grandmother's dog pound. We are a very different thing. And so um, we have a group of employees who are officers. I talked about them. There are over 30 of them. Last week was National Animal Control Appreciation Week. So, big thanks to all the work they do. We are part veterinary hospital, and the veterinary hospital serves the 20,000 animals who are sheltered by us each year. It also serves members of the public who can't afford to pay for vet care or the full price of vet care. And so we spay and neuter their animals. We offer vaccines. We do basic wellness. We do some emergency work. We'll do procedures that will allow people to keep the animal if it's money standing in the way. We have a whole wildlife program. It's just wildlife education and helping people to live with wildlife. And that's important because DC is a urban area with a great deal of parkland. And so we have a lot of wildlife conflicts when people encroach upon wild animal spaces and do things like leave their trash out. And it's not the raccoon's fault if you leave your trash out. So we have one team that's just dedicated to helping people live humanely with wildlife and actually learn to enjoy them as part of the gift of living in a city with so much beautiful green space. We have a humane education program in camps for children who come in and learn about all species of animal. And we, of course, do lost and found. We have an entire behavior team that offers dog training classes, which they're doing virtually right now.
Really?
They've moved all the classes online virtually.
But y'all had a dog whisperer who could approach the dog. You can't do that virtually.
No, but we can see a lot. And we can see a lot that's happening between the owner and the dog on video. And so we can coach them and then talk to them again in a few days to see how it's doing. And it's an example of how we've just re-engineered everything we do.
Do you think that the animals are aware that something peculiar is going on out in the world? Especially the dogs who supposedly have this great sense of surroundings. What are you picking up from?
Well, I think the companion animals love it because they're with people so much of the time. We were in a conversation the other day wondering if animals would start showing separation anxiety as we re-enter society and people start going back to work. So I think the companion animals love it. I also think the wild animals love it too, because they're out and about in a different way. I live in Washington, D.C., and I was working in my home office the other day and I saw 6 deer come out of the woods and just walk down the street. I wake up to the sound of birds and I go to sleep to the sound of owls. So I think the wild animals actually feel like they're getting their world back.
That is interesting. So you take, not to be provocative, but in the conflict between humans and animals, you all think that the animals are always right.
No.
That it's their world. They were here first.
No, I take a system view of it. I think it's important that we all live together. And I personally got into this because of the human side of animal welfare. I didn't have a companion animal till I was nearly 40. So I didn't grow up with cats and dogs. I appreciated them from afar, but it was really seeing the impact that our cat had on my daughter, and then just starting to see the impact that animals have on people that got me interested in this work. So I would say that the connection between human and animals is what drives our organization, and making sure that the whole system can work together. Um, and everything we do is systemic. I mean, we are one of the Humane Society organizations that is completely vegan, because we don't believe that we should be adopting out chickens and serving them to donors and events. It's hypocritical. Uh, and so, no, I don't think the animal is always right, but I do think the animal needs to be understood just as the people need to be understood.
Mhm. When you say companion animal, you're certainly not talking about cats, right?
You know what? They probably wouldn't like it if they knew that's what I call them. I was talking about animals that we adopt and consider our pets. Yeah, cats, I'm not sure. I would love to have a conversation with a cat and see what they say.
I don't know if you can see, but this is my cat,
Wow.
Susie, that I got. She was just a little kitty.
Yeah.
Now she's there now. She's looking. Anything that moves, she's on it. And I'm sorry that she does not regard crickets and spiders as her peer.
Well, she's grown up well. I remember the meeting a little differently. I don't remember you picking her. I remember her picking you. I think
Yeah,
she walked by you walked by her, and she grabbed your
yeah,
leg.
yeah. She and then took over once she came. It's amazing. But yeah, they do have an amazing effect. What do you have at your house? You said it was a pit bull. What's the name?
Her name is Sassy. She's named after the drink of New Orleans, the Sazerac.
Ah,
Yeah. Um, she makes me feel warm and fuzzy inside. And then I have a little dog who was born in my house, actually, in foster care. His name's Tedward. And I have a cat named Harold, who used to live on the streets of DC, but he is completely an indoor cat and rules
hmm,
the house right now.
interesting. Say, that reminds me about indoor, outdoor.
Hmm.
Do you have any opinion on whether the animals should stay in or out or both?
Well, I think dogs absolutely need to be outside and walking around.
Mhm.
Personally, I think cats should be indoors, because they can get into all kinds of mischief when they're living outdoors. They can kill birds and other species. Um, they can just get into trouble. Uh, but there is a whole, as you know, and we've talked about this. There is a whole uh, community of cats that do live outside
Mm.
in all of our communities, whether it's rural or urban, because they're not domesticated, and so we try to find ways for them to have lives, um, and not to get themselves in trouble, and stay in their communities.
Yeah, there. Oh my goodness! Every few months or so, I'll look up and there are all these little beautiful kittens,
Hmm.
look like they were just born, and they're all trailing around um, a parent, and then you stop seeing them after a while. You
Well, I'll
know,
tell you why. There's a happy ending there. The reason you stop seeing them is because in all of the communities that we work with, we have um, individuals all throughout DC and New Jersey
Mhm.
who take care of those cats. And so when they have kittens, they call us. And
Ah,
we come and get those kittens, and
mhm,
they go into foster care, and they learn how to live in homes from their very earliest age.
mhm.
And they are sterilized and adopted. And so it's actually a good thing that you're not seeing them, because it means they're coming through our system.
Yes, that's good news
Hmm.
because I wonder about the foxes and I don't know whatever. Actually, where I am, they're big hawks and eagles. I don't know if they run off with the cats or anything like that. But
Well, we're doing a really cool study right now with the Smithsonian Institution, with the Great Basin Bird Conservatory, where we've brought everybody everybody on all sides of the table around the cat and bird issue.
Mm.
And we've gotten funding to literally count all of the cats in DC and to understand their comings and goings. And so it's part survey, it is part camera trap, and a camera trap is just traps a photograph. It doesn't trap an animal. It's much like what they use with wild animals. And so we're really learning a lot about the patterns of outdoor cats in DC, and we are seeing that they have entirely different feeding rhythms than a domestic cat, because they are very savvy about fox and hawks and things like that. So they only come out at certain times. And the study will go on for 3 years. So we'll know a lot more about the entirety of cats in our community by late 2021.
Yes, you seem to take the birds side with the cat bird thing. No,
You are being provocative. No, I'm all about the system. And I think if cats can be inside, there are going to be more birds who survive. And yet at the same time, I don't want to euthanize a perfectly healthy cat who is living a decent life outside just because he can't be domesticated and become a pet. So it's, it's an imperfect set of solutions we have. And that's part of why we're doing this study, to see if we can have a slightly more perfect system.
Well, I'll tell you, from what I've observed, is that a cat is no match for 2 mockingbirds.
Well, in my house, a cat is no match for a 65-pound dog either. But this has been a tough time for sure, but I'm seeing a lot of hope actually in how we come out of this as people that love and advocate for animals, because the way that our community has responded to us, I think that going forward, we might not need to shelter as many animals, and we can do it virtually in people's homes, which means more people can be a part of our mission. I think that the fact that people had that plan when they have gotten COVID tells me that the value of animals is really skyrocketing as a society. And I think that these are all really important trends to watch going forward. I'm thinking that this may be the moment that the old pound system completely explodes. And if you think about it, we deinstitutionalized orphanages a long time ago, and that turned out to be better for everybody. The kinds of changes that I'm seeing and expecting are really a deinstitutionalizing of the shelter system into a more community-based organization. And I'm not exactly sure what that means, but it gives me a lot of hope and energy.
Not to bring it down, but to the extent that people who are mean to animals will probably be mean to human beings. Do you think that we're going to be nicer to each other because so many people are being nice to animals right now? Or given what you said earlier about this economic system, that the challenges ahead, people will revert back to some mean behavior?
I think that's a really good question. I guess I'm on the positive side of that, because I look at what the people around me are doing. And I guess the people that I'm around the most right now are my colleagues, both the people I work with in my own organization, but also colleagues around the country. And I'm seeing the generosity, the courtesy. I'm seeing for our team, people who are volunteering to do tasks that they've never done before to help out a teammate. I've got a whole team of people that is just looking out for employees who get sick and may live alone. And it can be anything from doing their job to bringing them food. And so I'm actually seeing people be kinder and more thoughtful and more generous. And I think that will continue. Um, I mean, the thing I do worry about is what are the economic ramifications of this going to be? Because we see how much people need us, or needed us before all of this happened, when more people had jobs and livelihoods. So we're really trying to come out of the gate pretty powerfully with the services that are going to support people who are struggling economically. And that's going to be a big focus of ours, I think, for the foreseeable future.
Mhm. Well, good luck with that. I
Thank
think
you.
it's I'm hopeful too. I
Yeah.
think mm, that people will need animals more than they ever realized
Hmm.
during times like these. So,
And I'm
yeah.
also hoping that people are kinder to the world. I mean, I have lain in bed, not to be too graphic, but listening to the birds in the morning, feeling like the earth is healing as I listen to them.
Mhm, mhm,
And I'd love to see that continue. I think people have seen how it can continue, and how maybe if we're just a little gentler uh, with our footprints, that everybody's going to benefit and the earth's going to benefit.
mhm. Well, I like that. I'm not going to try to be provocative there. I'm hoping that that is the case. It's we do have the capacity to turn pain into healing. And I know from watching inmates who
Hmm.
get kittens,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
that it can make life behind bars, better, more tolerable, get people out of themselves.
Right.
So if they can do it for, people behind bars, I'm sure they can do it for people in their homes. So, yeah.
Absolutely. I think they're doing it all the time, every hour. As I'm just really blown away by how much comfort people's animals are giving them right now.
Mhm. 20,000
Hmm.
animals a year.
Yeah. And I think if you were to count all the ones that we rescue or serve through our medical programs, it's well over 110,000 beyond that every year.
Amazing. That's amazing.
Mhm.
Well, looks like the animals and the people are here to stay no matter what COVID-19 tries to do.
I
So,
hope so. And I think there's not a lot of space between the animals and people right now. So we're in this together.
yeah. Okay. Well, look, it's been a pleasure talking to you, Lisa. I'll have to come back, check in, see how things are going when the coast is clear.
We would
So,
love that. Should I have kittens out in the hallway to grab you, or do you want me to have them in the back?
yeah. Yes, we love them. It's like family members, but we can only feed so many
Yeah,
mouths.
we got to
So,
know. We've got to know our limits.
yes.
It's been great to see you, Courtland, and thank
Yes.
you. You've been just a wonderful supporter of our mission, and I think I'd want to thank you. You've been a wonderful supporter of our people,
Mm,
and you have seen how hard their work is, and I'm really grateful that you've been their advocate.
mhm. Great people, including yourself. So,
Thank you.
thank you. Okay. All
All right.
right then.
Have a
Okay.
have a wonderful day, and thank you.
You too. All right. Thank you. And coming up next, Baxter Montgomery, who's a cardiologist from Houston, is going to talk a little bit about healing in the age of COVID-19. Okay, stay tuned. All right.